man, and welcome to the Hearts Afire Podcast. In 2015, many of us first became aware of Laudato Si, the second encyclical by Pope Francis, and recently the Laudato Si Action Platform has become much more well known as it is in the midst of being launched and implemented throughout the world. And for today's episode, we are taking a deep dive into the Laudato Si Action Platform with our guest, Blauvelt Dominican associate Ellen Nash. Before we get to our discussion, I'd like to remind you that whether you're watching this episode live or listening to it on a podcast, make sure to never miss an episode by clicking the subscribe button now. We appreciate your support of the Hearts Afire podcast. Now on to today's discussion with our guest, Ellen Nash. Thank you, Ellen, for joining us today, and welcome to the Hearts Afire podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And
I'm Ellen Nash, a Blauvelt associate. I'm a member of the Blauvelt community associated in their mission and with their prayer life. As an associate, I'm a member on their Social Justice Committee. I represent them this morning in speaking to you. The Laudato Si, meaning praise be to you, is an encyclical written by Pope Francis for care of the common home. He published it in May 2015. In that, he criticizes or critiques consumerism, irresponsibility in development, environmental degradation, and global warming. He calls us now all into action.
So, Ellen, you just gave our listeners who might not know a little bit of an insight to Laudato Si is and to what Laudato Si is. And, if you can just share what is the Laudato Si Action Plan and what are the goals of it?
Thank you. This is a little bit involved, so this has some other connected points to it, so I ask you to bear with me. First, I'd like to share some words of wisdom. In the end, it's not the years in your life that count, but the life in your years. To begin with the Laudato Si Action Platform, it's a 7-year journey of sustainability for our Earth and for all its inhabitants. It is focused on Pope Francis's encyclical, Laudato Si, on care of our common home. You can get a copy of the Laudato Si encyclical on the website Laudato Si Movement. Pope Francis is focused on what is called integral ecology. He and we now understand that everything is connected. Everything is connected. I repeat that because it is really key to understanding this action platform. Climate catastrophe, poverty, economic and social injustice, racism, human trafficking, gun violence, war, and occupation. In Pope Francis's own words, everything is connected. Concern for the environment thus needs to be joined to a sincere love for our fellow human beings and an unwavering commitment to resolving the problems of society. The Laudato Si Action Platform calls for an integrated approach to combating poverty, restoring dignity to the excluded, at the same time protecting nature. The goal of this enormous effort to mobilize the entire Catholic Church is to create the critical mass that's needed for radical societal transformation, as well as being totally connected. We're goaling for transformation in order to ensure life on our planet for future generations. We know from history that radical social change starts from below. Examples of Gandhi in India and Mandela in South Africa and the suffragettes across the world. If change is to come, it will come from the people, not from our leaders. Synergy is what happens when people come together, when different parts form a whole, when Catholics and others unite in their practice of integral ecology. That whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's what's needed to reach a critical mass. We know it takes 3.5% of the population to have an impact. It takes 21 to 25% of a population to reach critical mass, which will bring irreversible systemic change. We must act urgently. Each of us can play a valuable role if we set out today, not tomorrow, today. Words from Pope Francis.
And those are very inspiring words. And, Ellen, how, if you could just share with our listeners, how are the Sisters of St. Dominic committed to the Laudato Si Action Plan? What steps are they taking? And if you could share that along with what about the Social Justice Committee? And if you could just share about the work that they're doing.
The Laudato Si comes from the Pope's encyclical, as we stated.
Mhm.
Also, the Vatican Office for Promoting the Integral Human Development joined with the International Union of Superior Generals for the Conference of Major Superiors of the Men, and together they kind of decided the way to promote this involving the Catholic Church worldwide. And that's how the platform came about. The process is flexible, it's international, and it's open to all,
Mhm.
not just the Catholic Church. I say international, I mean worldwide. It's a 7-year process. It has 7 goals. The first, the response to the cry of the earth.
Mhm.
The second, the response to the cry of the poor. Think of these goals again as being connected, not individual. There's ecology, economics, adoption of simple lifestyles, ecological education, key into this, ecological spirituality, and last, community engagement and participatory action. I encourage you to find others to discuss those 7 goals with. The more that we talk about them, the easier it will be to fully participate in the transformative process of this action platform. When you asked how is Blauvelt involved in this specifically, Knowing it's international, in the United States, we have a group called LCWR,
Hmm.
the Leadership Conference of Women Religious. Blauvelt is a part of that. And that group, LCWR, is leading the women religious in the effort to provide information, videos, assistance, and Zoom conversations. They have justice promoters nationally, Earth councils, OPSCC, which are Susadidi heads in our community, justice committees, all working on this platform. The great news for the women religious is that we've been working on these goals probably since the Second Vatican Council. In our land ethic, in our belief statement, we have corporate stances and collective stances with others. We have these and others to build on. You may know that the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are embraced by the LSAP. These goals provide a vision for a new and better world and a way forward. We've been gifted with opportunity to see so much of what we have valued and worked for over the years being promoted now by the Vatican in global church. This will make it easier to promote our concerns for racial, economic, social, and environmental justice. I want to take a breather for a minute and think of it because it can be overwhelming.
No, you're doing a great job explaining it to our listeners. And,
Thank you.
you
I,
know, how can people learn more about the Laudato Si Action Plan and become involved with it?
sure, right. I want to just go back to one more thing. If I'm thinking about this, I know sometimes I think about cleaning my house or
Hmm.
apartment. And the other day I got the feeling to clean it. So what I did is I take a nap because as you can see, I'm not a youngster. And then when I got up, the feeling went away. Well, that's how Laudato Si Action Platform is sometimes to me. I think about it and we think about it in beautiful words written down, but we now need to take all of this much, much more seriously. Now we're really being asked, what can we do? In this 7 years with 7 goals, there's also 7 segments of the church that is asking us to be involved with Blauvelt. There's families, there are educational institutions and economic institutions that we belong to, parishes and dioceses, hospitals and healthcare centers, organizations that we belong to and groups like our NGOs at the UN,
Hmm.
our foundations and communities, and our religious orders. We are involved probably in all of these 7 sectors and are being encouraged to participate in this action platform in all these segments that we participate. One particular document that I need to ask you to listen to is the very commitment statement that Blauvelt has made
Hmm.
to we as religious orders have been asked to make a commitment statement to commit ourselves in these 7 years to this action platform. The statement is as follows. The Sisters of St. Dominic of Blauvelt, New York, are grateful for the call of Pope Francis to hear the cry of earth and the cry of the poor.
Hmm.
The Vatican 7 year Laudato Si Action Platform calls us worldwide Catholic community and all men and women of goodwill to publicly engage in the work of transformation through integral ecology. Integral ecology understands that the ecological crisis we're facing is global and consists of various interconnected problems, such as climate change, biodiversity loss, soil loss, air and water pollution,
Mm-hmm.
poverty and environmental destruction caused by war, fossil fuels, and capitalization. The Sisters of St. Dominic publicly commit to the 7-year process of transformation by strategically engaging in the 7 goals of the Laudato Si Action Platform. The first year of the goals is a year of planning, and the 7th year is a year of celebration. In our planning, Blauvelt, the LCWR, has asked us to focus on what we have already done, to
Mm-hmm.
look at our statements, to look at our social justice work, and in the next 5 years to build on that. I ask you for your prayers to do that, and I also am grateful for it. You can get information on the Laudato Si Action Platform from 2 websites, and there are many more.
Mm-hmm.
But Laudato Si Movement is one, and then Global Catholic Climate Movement would be the second. So I hope I've given you an overview of the platform action plan, but also the involvement that the women religious have been asked to step up into, being interconnected with the Catholic Church.
Sure. No, you did a great job explaining it to our listeners.
Thank you.
And I encourage everybody to visit those websites that Ellen just mentioned. We'll make sure to put them in the comments section. And Ellen, thank you so much for joining us today, giving us a very, detailed overview of the Laudato Si and then the Laudato Si action plan. And we hope that you join us for future discussions.
Thank you so much. Have a happy holiday.
Same to you. And before we go, I'd like to remind you that if you enjoyed today's discussion, please let us know by giving the Hearts Afire Podcast a 5-star rating on wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we hope you will join us for our final episode of the year next week, where Sister Barbara Ann Scrow will join us to reflect on 2021, Advent, Christmas, as well as her hopes for 2022. Thank you again for tuning into the Hearts Afire Podcast, and please know that you are in the daily prayers of our sisters and associates.